Hey there, if you ever had a situation where you just blew up, where you just lost control of your emotions, then this video is for you. What I'm going to share with you are 3 things on the way to manage your emotions. So I want to start out first with a story. When I was a kid, we grew up in Chicago. We didn't have a lot of financial means. My dad worked at a factory. My mom was a stay-at-home dad. We had 4 of us in the family. And there was my first day of, I think it was like 3rd or 4th grade, and I needed new gym shoes. So my dad was working, my mom at home, precious as she is, we walked about 4 or 5 blocks or something to a shoe store in Chicago. And we walked into the shoe store, and there was just this wall of shoes, right? I mean, you can imagine at that age, I was in Chicago, right? So, I mean, it's, in the city, it's all about the gym shoes growing up back then, so there was this wall of shoes, and she said, pick the shoes that you want for your first day of going back to school. And I saw the shoes. They were just almost like floating up in the air, right? I mean, I don't know if you ever had one of those moments where, you see something and it just like, it doesn't matter how many of there is of the other things, right? It was just like floating, right? And it was these white K-Swiss gym shoes, pure white K-Swiss gym shoes. And you know what I'm talking about? They're just these beautiful, beautiful shoes, and I was 7 or 8 or something like that, right? At the time. So I said, I would love those, right? And my mom, again, as precious as she was, she said, you need gym shoes? Those are the ones you like? Yes. And I saw the price tag, right? And she just said, we'll get those gym shoes, right? So what do I do? When the salesman, put them in the box, and then he asked me, would you like to wear them? I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. We're going to walk down 5 blocks, maybe run into my friends with my brand new white K-Swiss gym shoes, right? They actually, they had the big fat shoelaces that they were back in style, right? So, that was even more exciting. So we walked back home about 4 or 5 blocks. My dad wasn't home yet. He worked, was it like 3rd shift? So he got in about 11 o'clock. He worked 2nd shift. So sure enough, my dad comes home, right? I was just in joy, right? Because I had these brand new gym shoes. My dad comes and he pointed to the shoes and he asked, Mom, whose gym shoes are those? And I said, oh, they're, Juan Carlos's. And he said, how much were they worth? Right? He was a breadwinner, right? He had all the right to ask how expensive they were. And they were like, I think like at that time, they were like $70, $80, which is a big price tag for gym shoes. Now that's what I'm remembering now. Back then they could have been $30, $40, right? So, but they were twice as what you would normally buy any regular gym shoe. And my dad told my mom, you go back tomorrow, return those gym shoes. First of all, they're white, right? You're going to get them dirty, right? And they're not practical, right? And they're way too expensive. I was just drained, right? I mean, I was in an emotional high. I was going to wear these to the first day of school. It was like exciting, right? I was going to be part of the in crowd, right? So the next day, me and my mom went. The only issue was before we took them, if you remember in the story, I walked from the shoe store all 5 blocks all the way to the house. So the bottom of those shoes, those pearly white shoes, was dirty. So what did we do? We had to scrub the white soles, right? Remove all the dirt to be able to return them and get a refund. So that's what we did. And we returned them. And then I got some, lesser priced shoes, just regular gym shoes, which probably should have got in the first place because those weren't practical. Now, I tell you this story because our emotions are really made from our thoughts. And our thoughts are really created from our perceptions of what we experience. So in order for us to be able to, well, first of all, I'll tell you, you cannot control your emotions. I have worked on that for years. And let me tell you, if you're trying to control your emotions, let me save you many, many years of hard work with no progress. You cannot control your emotions. Doesn't matter what book you read, doesn't matter what anybody tells you, you cannot control your emotions. And we'll talk about this more in other videos, but the reason for me to tell you this is our experiences in the moment, right? Where we have high emotions, like that emotion that I had when my precious white case Swiss, right, shoes were taken away from me, right? Is that leaves a imprint on technically on your body, on your cells, right? And from there, right, any other experience and your thoughts that can trigger that moment in time, and there's a lot of lessons in that story that I told you, it's going to create other emotions, right? Now, this is the most important thing, and one of the most important things that you want to understand about controlling your emotions. That emotion that I felt, that was anger, right? That was grief about my shoes. It might seem small, but because I didn't release at that time, I didn't dispute my dad. I didn't say, I really want these shoes, right? I started crying and I just sucked those tears back in, because that's not what you do. Is when you hold those emotions, right? They just build up. Think about it like your piggy bank when you were a child. You just keep dropping all these emotional things in this piggy bank, and eventually the piggy bank, it's just so full that you just got to break it, and then all that change goes out, right? So in order to control your emotions, one, you have to realize that they cannot be controlled, right? They're not good, they're not bad, right? But you have to understand that the very, very first step is that you have to know that you have to feel them. In that moment, right, that I felt that emotional part of me missing my quizzes because they were too expensive, I created a sort of belief about money, about things, right, which later I unraveled. But as I tell you the story, it's very important for you, if you're trying to control your emotions, you have to feel them. You have to know, they're present, they're there. Go back to that story. If I would have went back, right, if I would have felt the anger, if I would have felt the disgust, the grief about my shoes, right, and if I would have been able to ask a different question, is instead of, being stuck in that emotion, ask, what am I feeling, right? And label it: grief, anger, I was upset, right? If I was able to identify the emotional feeling, and then that's step one, is identify it, right? Feel it. Know that it's not good or bad, but it's actually trying to tell you something. And number two is you want to label it. Like, what is it? Like, is it anger? Is it disgust? Is it, are you scared? Whatever it is, right? Now, the third step is very important. You want to ask yourself, what is the reason I'm feeling this way? And what thoughts are associated with it? And the reason that is, because emotions there's positive and negative, right? They're not good or bad, but emotions are the result of some sort of thought, right? And those thoughts in that moment of the story of the shoes was, they're taking something away from me, right? Something so precious to me, all because of money, right? Money, because it was worth, because it was double the price of shoes, right? They took it away from me, right? And you see how you can start associating things when you don't express your emotions in the moment, right? And you associate, let's say, money with being bad, right? Or something that I don't deserve, something of high caliber, right? Of something that's very expensive. So in order to maintain your emotions or to process them, first, step one is you got to know that you got to feel them. They're telling you something, right? Your body is like a tuning fork, right? You want to sense those emotions. Now, growing up, right, depending on how you grew up, we're normally told not to express our emotions. I mean, in school, right, same thing, right? Stop behaving this way, stop being happy, right? At home, depending on how you grew up as well. So we're told not to express our emotions. So we're kind of conditioned not to express emotions, not to feel them, right? Or you feel them, go feel them somewhere else, right? So step number one, you got to feel it. Know that the emotion is there. It's not good or bad. There is positive or negative, right? Now, step number two is label it. Just say, fuck, man, I'm pissed off, or I have anger, right? I'm sad, right? Whatever that emotion is, label it. Because once you shine a light on whatever it is, on anything, it starts losing its power. But it's actually trying to tell you something to your emotion. It's energy in motion. It's made to be processed, right? So you want to feel it. You want to label it, whatever it is. And third, you want to ask questions. Like, what's the reason I'm feeling this emotion? What triggered it, right? What is, the cause? What are the thoughts that I'm thinking about this emotion, right? Like, what caused it? Because then you start unraveling it. And that's where you want to get to, is you want to get to the core of that emotion. Because I guarantee you, if you are having trouble controlling your emotions or maintaining your emotions, right, it's because there's a core, like a memory like mine, of the shoes where where money, like I didn't deserve something, higher priced, right? These white shoes were the elusive, right? And I had to process that, right? And it was many, many years later, because memories like that get buried, right? And they create these little emotional bubbles inside you, right? And then eventually someone kind of nudges and pops, and then it'll just blow up, right? Or we just carry this in ourselves and we're not able to process it. So what I really want you to do is, if you have the challenge, right, of managing your emotions, you really want to feel it, then you want to label it. And then third, you want to dig into it, find out what triggered it, what thoughts are causing it, because then that's going to get to the core of it, right? It might be a story like mine, and then you're able to unravel it. See, once you go into whatever it is that's causing the emotion, it loses its power, right? It's like fear, right? And we all tend to fear. It's like the time when I decided to jump out of a plane out of California, go parachuting, or skydiving, so I was scared, right? I was scared. Luckily, when we're in the plane, there's a guy, because I flew tandem. Luckily, there was a guy behind me that was attached, and we were on the plane. And if you ever never been skydiving, it's kind of cool. So, you kind of line up on both sides of the plane, like on the inside, and then they open the door, and then, one after the other, they just start jumping out, and then you just kind of move over these benches. And then when it's your turn, you get in front of the door, right? And if you skydive tandem, there's a guy behind you. And then he says, ready. And then my guy, he says 3, 2, and then we didn't even go to 1, and he just jumped out, right? There's no opportunity for me to say stop. Like, he's in power. He pushed me, right? So if I were to let fear hold me back, right, and if he didn't push me into it, then I would have never skydived. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I tell you that story because we have to go into it, right? We have to go into the unknown. We have to go into the fear. We have to go into that emotion. And once you do that, it loses its power, right? So if you are working on maintaining or controlling your emotions, first of all, don't control your emotions. I've done that for so many years. And the more you try to control it, they just stay there, right? They get bigger because you give it more emotion, right? So you have to really go into that emotion, right? With the 3-step process is you got to feel it, you got to label it, and then you got to question it, right? And then that's going to be able to release that bubble, right? And then you'll have some sort of lesson in there. From what I've realized, and even in that, story, that there's a lesson, like in my story, that I associated, lack of money, or, that I didn't deserve, higher price things, right? And that, those little beliefs that you start believing, they affect you later in life. So in actuality now, when I get triggered with my emotions or whatever it is, if it's fear, because fear is an emotion as well, those are opportunities for you to go into, to start growing and to really start breaking free, right? And that's really the purpose of this channel, is to help you break free from the box. And the box, the best way that I can describe it, the box that I was in many, many years ago, is like a box of sand. It's like quicksand, right? It's like the more you move, the more it fills, right? And the goal of this channel is to break you free from the box, so you lose all that sand and you feel free, right? You feel empowered, right? To take a step into the new you and then transform your life, transform your business, transform your relationships. Because once you're free out of the box, anything goes. You can pick, you can choose, you can design your life. And that's my goal. So I definitely appreciate you staying to the end. And I really hope you found this information useful. If you did, subscribe to the channel, share it. But again, remember, you cannot control your emotions, right? We only have to process them. They're energy in motion. We have to release them. And if you experience that emotion, you want to, number one, is you want to feel it, right? Remember, there is no good or bad, just positive or negative. And then two, you want to label it. If it's anger, fear, disgust, whatever it is. And then third, you want to dig into it. Ask questions. What does this mean? What caused this emotion, right? What are the thoughts that I'm asking? Just ask certain questions. You start unraveling it and it loses its power. And then you're going to learn something from it. So thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this. And if you would like more tips like this to gain more clarity in your life, to feel more empowered, and to transform your life. Thank you for watching.